It's amazing, all the islands are the same. The challenges are the same. They're probably different in terms of quantum and proportion, but it is interesting listening to the discussion today and yesterday. The banks issue, the money laundering issues, they're all the same in all of the islands. Our lives are all much the same. Before I get started, I want to thank Nerlin for her very kind invitation and to commend her for hosting this event. For those of you who don't engage in hosting, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into these things. I happen to do some of it myself, so I know. I also want to suggest to her that clearly there's a demand to make it an annual event. Secondly, I want to commend Wes Hall, who is the owner, I think, of this property, who yesterday spoke at our lunch. He was very good. He was authentic. He was true in what he said. He was honest. And it's a message that ordinary, average citizens need to hear, particularly for us countries who are in tourism. I'm going to just essentially wrap up what was said before on our panel, because I'm not going to have a presentation on the lights. I think you've seen enough PowerPoint presentations for the last 2 days. I'm going to speak from my own experience in tourism and about 10 things that you should consider as a destination or a product in the tourism space. First, I want to start by saying I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in tourism globally. If you look at the things that drive tourism globally in terms of wealth and wealth creation, there is no shortage of markets. We in the western part of the world tend to look at Europe, the US, Canada, South America. We haven't even begun to dream about the Chinese, China, and Asia, which is a whole nother kettle of fish. There are millions and millions of people moving from the lower levels of income into middle class. And if you extrapolate it 10, 15 years from now, they're all going to be traveling somewhere. The challenge is how do we, as small Caribbean islands, get our share of the pie? And our share isn't a huge share. So we don't need to be daunted by that prospect. In terms of things I want to talk about, one, very quickly, protect your brand. I think the good lady from Ladara spoke to that very, very eloquently a few minutes ago. And protecting your brand in a global way. What do you want to be? Who's your target market? What are your natural strengths? Not make-up stuff. What is the market looking for, and how can you provide them with that? The second thing I want to talk about is what I'm calling a 50-year rule in development. And you're probably sitting wondering, what the devil is that? If you are a government official making a decision about an investment in your country, or you are someone who's investing in tourism, you need to think about it on that scale. 50 years ago, a little bit more than that, a good gentleman, a Rockefeller, came to the BVI and developed one of our iconic properties, Little Licks Bay, which is a Rosewood today. Well, they're rebuilding it after the hurricane. And he sought to develop a product that in his mind would survive 50 years plus. And if you go to the BVI today and you were to go to the Rosewood, you go to Little Licks Bay, you will see it just as the way he intended it to be. And to speak to his vision, actually, that product, that property became the gold standard for what the resort should be. All the fancy guys around the world we see develop, whether it's Amman or it's there's some other high-end ones that escape me now, but they all came to look at Little Licks Bay. What is it that drove that property that made it successful? And it wasn't contrived. It was really building a product and a property that spoke to the nature and the unique qualities of the island, from design to the product and the natural elements that were used to construct it. The other thing I want to talk about is very quickly is, again, something that was said earlier, protecting your natural environment. At the end of the day, that's what's is our differential advantage, or said, or not only BVI, but collecting through the Caribbean. That is the foundation on which our tourism is built. And if you lose that, there's going to be hell to pay. not only hell to pay, visitors are not going to come. So we have to do our level best. And we live in a world today too where the environment is now a global issue. So it enhances our chances of being attractive to our visitor base. We must not compromise as it relates to our environmental strengths. We must be authentic. Again, a comment that was made earlier. And what does authenticity mean? Be who you are. Don't be contrived. Maybe I shouldn't attempt to be St. Lucia, nor should it attempt to be the Bahamas. Nor should it attempt to be Trinidad. We should be who we are. Don't be like the dog going over the bridge and look in the water with his bone in his mouth, and you know what happened. We must always keep an eye, a strategic eye, on our authenticity. We must know our strengths and know who we are. We must also move, again another comment that was made earlier, to integrate our culture into our tourism product. In most cases, it's a very key differentiator for tourism. Another point that was made also to reinforce is the fact that our people must be involved in our tourism, and not just be the employees, but be genuinely involved in our tourism. And it should start not at the secondary school or the primary school, it should start in kindergarten. So when the kids go from that level, they understand how the country earns its money, why is it that our parents are in tourism or marketing or whatever branch of the industry it is. It starts from there, even if they don't themselves get into tourism. It becomes part of their DNA for life, and hence it makes it a lot easier to continue on to be a successful tourism product if you have a citizenry who understands at that level why you are in tourism. This is a very important point, and one that BVI, we like to say we've gotten right in some way. I see St. Lucia is much doing the same. A lot of other islands are. This idea of low volume and high impact. We are such small islands, it is very difficult to build an industry with high rises and huge resorts. We shouldn't attempt it. The reality is, you can have, Little Licks doesn't have more than 100 rooms, but I can assure you they charge a lot more than $1,000 a night. The point is, what happens with that? It creates opportunity for the community. It creates value in terms of the restaurants that are around, all the services that have to be created to nurture it. So, and as a result of that, the people who work there earn a very high standard of living. So you can't do that with a product or pricing that is just above the bottom of the barrel. You can't develop a country on that, nor can you create a high standard of living by doing that. There's a lot of other countries around that are now engaging in this principle. One of them, and I like to look not just immediately within the region where we live, but far beyond that. Rwanda, a country that had its genocide, wars, and difficulties in the 90s. Today, they are developing their product, particularly around the gorillas, and visiting them, developing a very, very high-end resort base to focus on that. Seychelles is another. One of the strategic challenges I want to touch on that we, as a region, I don't think it's unique to BVI, is the fact that we've built, I think, our tourism on the baby boomers. And the honest reality is that they are moving on in life. They're not traveling as much because they're older and they're going into the sunset. One of the challenges that we face in the BVI, and I know you face it in St. Lucia, is as the baby boomers exit the stage, how do we get the millennials in? And the millennials as a cohort is by far much larger than their baby boomer parents. Not only that, the parents are bequeathing to them trillions of dollars. However, they're not their parents. They buy differently, they travel differently, and their expectations are different than their parents. But if we are going to continue to survive in tourism, we've got to find a way to keep, yes, dealing with our baby boomers, but a keen eye on the reality that they're moving off into the sunset. One of the things in the BVI, where our product is a little different than yours, not overly different, we have a substantial amount of our rooms are actually water. Yachting, as you probably know, is a huge element in BVI's tourism. And 10 years ago, all the boats were monohulls. Now all of them, well, not all of them, but the majority of them have switched to being catamarans. And you wonder, well, why is that? Well, it is a reflection of the need of, again, both elements, the millennial crowd and the baby boomers. The baby boomers, from the standpoint that the boats are much easier to navigate, to get on, to use, and what have you. And for the millennials who are not themselves sailors, it's an easier way to introduce them to sailing. And I can assure you that the price of renting a yacht in the BVI for a week is substantial. It's very high. And you wonder, well, how do we benefit from that? Well, we benefit from it because not only are the boats based there and employment is there, but the boats also act as a distribution mechanism in terms of distributing the revenue around the territory. You sail from island to island. Or you don't if you don't want to. It was gone. Maybe that's a signal. Don't worry about it. I think I can talk loud enough. So that's a reality. That's what happens. That's what. Maybe it's me. Don't worry about it. So for us, the yachting side is terribly important, but that switch from the monohulls to the catamarans is a direct reality of the baby boomers moving off the scenes and the millennials coming into. One or two other final points. One, we must invest for the long term. That's a point that West Hall made yesterday. Our investments tend to follow sometimes the cycles of government. And we all know that governments tend to operate on a 4-year cycle. And if you peel it backwards, honestly, it's a 18 months to 2-year cycle. Because after the second year, the mission is to, how do I get reelected? We need to therefore have policies, particularly across governments. And we in the BVI, we have the same challenge. But as a unique thing in the BVI, I have to say, on the other side of the economy, the majority of the bills that come to the BVI Legislative Council, when they meet every 2 months, whenever it is, are financial services. There are no confusion, differences, whether with opposition or the government. That was a policy decision made many, many years ago. We need to find a way to get that same principle as it relates to our tourism. And the final point I want to make is that as small islands, and we are far, far smaller than you are, we have to constantly, we shouldn't be insular. We are competing for a livelihood in a global environment. We have to be aware of what's going on globally. Not to borrow and to bring what they're doing here, but to be aware because they're competitors. Why am I quoting Rwanda and Seychelles? And I say, well, that's Africa, and it's a group of islands off the coast of Africa. But what they do in tourism, they're feeding on the same segments, the same space that we are fishing. It's the same pond that they're fishing in. So we need to constantly be aware, or else we can end up into difficulty. And today's world, keeping up with what's going on is very easy because of the technology in which we use. I'm not suggesting we become the Joneses. I'm suggesting that we keep an eye on the Joneses so that we know where they're going and we adopt whatever we can of their best practices to advance our cause. Thank you.